Hey guys, welcome to our March. It's now our March webinar. I'm so excited for this conversation. Please jump in the chat. Chelsea, hello. Chelsea's the one at the beach that decided, to get on this webinar. Guys, jump in the chat throughout. If you've been on our webinars before, we like really to have an open conversation. We no longer do crazy slide decks. We just want to make sure we're having authentic dialogue between us, asking real questions that you might have. So let's get straight to our intros. I am so excited to have Stephanie Melvin here. Stephanie, it's been a long time coming.
I know, way too long. We've been stalking each other on social media for a really long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has been a fun collaboration to plan. I'm excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. So a little history about you. I know you are currently with Canvas Me, and I'm so stoked to get into that. What is your title there?
So I am the VP of Business Development for Canvas Me. Yeah.
Wonderful. And then, of course, we're a beauty school webinar. We are Beauty Schools Marketing Group. We run beautyschoolsdirectory.com. We would be crazy not to talk about your beauty school history.
Let's do it.
So tell us a little bit about you and your past jobs.
Yeah. I've been in the beauty industry for over 20 years. Currently the Vice President of Business Development, like I said, for Canvas Me. Huge shout out to Matt and Jen Martinelli, my friends, my family, just so grateful for them. And I am a salon owner as well. So that was kind of, the past year of my life looks a lot different from the years prior. The years prior, I spent 12 years with a huge shout out to Paul Mitchell Schools, and a lot of my friends and family from Paul Mitchell, I think, are going to be on the call today, which is really exciting. But over the course of those 12 years, I spent a few of those years in the beginning working in a school. So I was an admissions leader. I was in the trenches every day, working in a brand new school in Lexington, Kentucky. And then from there, I went on to work for Paul Mitchell Corporate. And so I had the honor and the pleasure of working with over 110 campuses of Paul Mitchell schools for the last decade. So yeah, it's been a fun ride. And during my time with them, I was their national director of enrollment. So all things recruitment, all things lead generation, the enrollment process, and then we really started to get into placement, salon relationships. So it kind of spanned the gamut for a whole decade. So
I think our attendees then are going to be super disappointed that we're not even talking a lot about admissions today. So we're going to have you on a future webinar, FYI, just to talk recruiting. Yeah, we would absolutely love that. That's actually kind of how I want to start today's webinar, Stephanie, is before we really just jump into what's lacking in schools. And the title of this webinar, you guys, is, are your students truly salon ready? We do want to tackle that question and a bunch of hard questions around it, but let's talk about admission, because obviously that's where it starts, right? So when we're talking about leads enrolling in a school, what would you hear as far as career goals from the leads sitting across the table in admissions? What types of jobs are leads looking for?
Okay, great question. I would also like to tell everyone that's listening today that Jen and I did not really prepare for this conversation. So the question she's asking me, I feel like I'm kind of in the hot seat right now, but we're off to a good start. I like this.
First, great.
We'll see what happens over the course of the next hour, but I think we're good. So what would I hear? So I've done thousands of tours, I would venture to say, over the length of my career, and listening to the students, not only during the tour, but while they're in school and watching that idea evolve, right? So what is it that they wanted to do? Here's what I'll say is that without a doubt, hands down, the thing that you hear all the time, and if you are in admissions or worked in admissions and you know this, just drop it in the chat. But what you want to hear, or what you do hear, is I want to own my own salon. And that was way before the solopreneur movement. That was way before the suite model. Everyone's always wanted to own their own salon. They want to own their own business. And so we would hear that above all else. But what I will add to that, Jen, is I think in the last several years, we've added a whole new layer to what the expectations of the professional side of the industry are. So getting into the industry as a student, you already have this idea of what it's going to look like for you, made famous by TikTok. So TikTok has shown people all of the opportunities that are out there. They don't feel limited anymore by their location. They don't feel limited by lack of experience. They know that anything is possible. So what we're hearing students say today is not only do they want to own their own salon, whether it be a suite or a big salon one day, and they have dreams of that, but they also want to be celebrity hairstylists. They want to be celebrity makeup artists. They want to have a following on YouTube. You know, they want to monetize their experience and their education. So we're seeing a whole new generation of stylists and makeup artists and professionals of all kinds, setting kind of a new bar for what the industry has to offer.
I mean, you bring up a great point. It's something I've been talking about for the past couple years, and that's jobs today were not available 5 years ago. Like to say, I want to be an influencer and have brand deals. I mean, if you were to say that 10 years ago, that wouldn't even be a phrase that would come out of your mouth. So, you know, this career today can open up the doors to so many things. And so this is what I love about beauty schools. I love that we help students get jobs.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but I went to a 4-year university. I mean, I have a degree. My degree happened to be in journalism. They didn't help me get a job. I mean, I had to go out there and hunt for one. They don't care. They take your, in fact, the very first email I got when I graduated was, would you donate to our alumni association? No.
Can you give us some more money? Would that be okay?
That's all. And I'm still getting those stupid emails, Stephanie. But this is something I do love about schools. And why don't we talk about it in marketing and admissions? Right. I think it's that every single beauty school does it. So we just think people assume that they know that schools do that. But they don't. They really, really don't. And I feel like that's something we should be talking about. How important was that when you were in admissions to make sure your reps understood we aren't just here to get them in school, we are here to help them finish and get a job. And that needs to be part of that conversation too.
Well, and what I'll say to that too is that we do spend so much time as school professionals focused on leads and enrollment, right? Like that becomes, if that's your world, it becomes your whole world. And we forget about engagement and attendance and completion being the real moneymaker, right? Like that's really what's up. And not only from a financial standpoint, but the satisfaction of knowing that what you promised them in the very beginning came true in the end. And so as admissions leaders or as enrollment professionals, how are you really painting the picture of not only what that school is going to do for you while you're there, but also like, let's help you begin with the end in mind and start setting goals for yourself. And then you'll see us, your school community, as your partners in being able to achieve those goals. So the where do you see yourself in 5 years question that we have asked for 1,000,000 years in admissions, right? Let's back it up into where do you see yourself in a year? Let's talk about where you want to be in 1 year. Like 5 years is awesome. Where do you see yourself in 1 year? Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Because today, all of us, our brains, right? We can only take small things at a time. We're like information overload. But really helping people to goal set along the way and letting them know that your school has the resources available, whatever those resources may be, that you have the resources available to be able to help them achieve those goals. That's what it's all about, right?
I agree. And then when it comes to those resources, let's talk for a minute about that. I mean, schools don't just have someone in career services, you know, that maybe posts a job. Sometimes they do resume help. They do mock interviews. What types of things would you all talk about at Paul Mitchell that you felt really set your students up for success in the way of, you know, post-graduation?
Absolutely. A few things that I will say. Number one is this, that every campus is different. So whether you're a Paul Mitchell school or, you know, another wonderful school that's out there, every school is really, really different, and that's okay. Knowing for admissions, definitely knowing what your school offers and telling the truth about what your school offers is always the objective, right? We would get that question from potential students. We would get the question a lot from parents, the dad interview, which I always love. But when they come in and they say, you know, how are you going to help my child find a job? Or how are you going to help me find a job? is your admissions team well educated on the resources that are available in your school? Without over promising, because what we know is that by regulatory standards that are on the schools today, that there are some cautionary measures that have to be taken in that initial process about what you're sharing about your school. And so we always want to be mindful of that for sure.
Yeah.
But understanding your resources, the classes that you say that you're teaching. So what we'll hear sometimes, not going to say a lot, but sometimes it's, oh yeah, we help you with your resume, we help you with this, we help you with that. But do you really? Or is that something that's just kind of on the back burner and you're like, ooh, our guest artist didn't show up today, or, you know, this class got canceled, let's pull in a resume class, instead of making it the priority in your school. And so we know through all leadership study, everything else that we do as professionals to elevate ourselves, we know how important it is to begin with the end in mind and develop a strategy that helps you reach your goals, right? Like we do that in our everyday life, but their goal is to get what type of job. And what we do to prepare them for that has to go far beyond licensure, even though that's our obligation. What are we doing that's additional? What is the extra? What's the gravy, you know, that we're adding to that to be able to support them? And for me, and this goes far beyond my time with Canvas Me, this goes all the way back to the very beginning. The most important thing that you can do for anyone is to help them create the path forward, right? And so the resources that you're using and teaching them about developing a portfolio, designing an online portfolio that really showcases who they are, helps to set them apart from, you know, the rest of the world, the rest of the tens of thousands of people that are out there looking to fill these stylish jobs.
Yeah, you know, we're gonna, and I don't want to get too far ahead. I know we're going to kind of get into some of those personal branding things that you can do. But just to close up the admissions section, I think something that we fail to do often is we really do fail to talk about the resources our school has when that's a selling point. Like,
Sure.
you know, we just don't want to tell people, yes, you're going to learn how to cut hair and get a job. We want to say that actually matters to us. We really do, whether you want to work for yourself or you want to work in a salon. We really, really do at the school, you know, want to equip you with that. So this is now, let's just take a shift into all the uncomfortable things because
no, prepare me for this, Jen. I don't know what's coming. What do you mean?
I don't want, you know, because I feel like sometimes schools don't want to admit that they are not setting their students up for success. And so I think you said it best at the beginning. Every school is different, right? So sometimes we do this well, and sometimes we fail our students. And so let's just have an open conversation about that. Let's talk about what's lacking. How well are beauty programs preparing students for the real world?
Jen, all right, here we go. I'll take my deep breath. Again, I will say every school is different and everyone does it differently. But here's what I know to be true, is that there is a gap between, and this is what I have shared with you. This is a conversation Jen and I have had on the side, and something that's very, very important to me, especially at this stage in my career. After being in the industry for 20 years, being on the professional side of the industry, being on the school side of the industry, I've seen both. And what I know is that there's a gap between the two. So what schools are doing to really prepare their students for a career in the beauty industry, and then what the beauty industry or the professional side of the industry is actually requiring from a new hire. And there's a lot of things that don't match up there in the middle. Okay. A lot of that, some of it is technical, absolutely. A lot of it is business acumen.
I agree.
So yeah, there is a widening gap as schools continue to meet the demands of the government. They continue to meet the demands of the ever-changing population of leads, right? And so they're constantly trying to keep up, but your eye comes off of how do we continue to make this better? How do we continue to be a better school that offers more and does more? And you take your eye off of that because you're so busy trying to manage the day-to-day, but the demands of the professional side of the industry are only increasing. They're not saying, oh, okay, we'll wait. We'll let you play catch up and we'll be over here waiting for you. They're constantly asking for more because today's consumer is demanding more. So filling the gap is really where I spend a lot of my time, trying to research solutions to be able to.
So you bring up two sides, which I think is fair. You bring up more of a practical, technical side that there's a gap, and then of course the business side. I feel like I'm probably not as equipped to talk about the actual practical side. I would like to get your insight on it. I can just personally tell you from going into schools, having worked in a school, I would say the time completing a service is a huge one.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. And I'm
3 hours for a haircut isn't going to work. In a salon. You would not hire that person and you know it.
I'm meticulous myself. So honor to those that do a 3-hour haircut. But yeah, I also don't feel extremely equipped to be able to discuss the technical piece of the industry. I'm not a hairdresser. Never been a hairdresser. You wouldn't want me to be your hairdresser. It doesn't have anything to do with that. But the technical piece, yes, and we can always spend some time diving into that. But again, it goes back to business acumen and also having people that are either on your staff or having the right resources in place to fill in the gaps that you have as a school. It's really, I want to use the right word here, but it's probably pretty delusional to think that you're so well-rounded that you can meet every single need of every single student. But there are so many resources that are available out there now to help you fill in the gaps without having to add more staff to your payroll.
I think you bring up a really good point. There are a lot of vendors out there that serve as supplemental education and training to maybe something that your core curriculum doesn't answer. So if your school is historically just not really good at doing retail, there are programs out there. Prosper U is an example. Like that's a program out there that literally teaches you retailing skills. Like there are supplemental programs for social media training or even bringing in guest speakers. How important should this be to owners to be out there looking for stuff like this?
Well, and you're asking my opinion, so I'm going to give you one side and you can agree or you can disagree. It doesn't really matter. Only my opinion. It's the most important thing that you can be doing right now. It's the most important thing. It's just like, and I'll take it out of context, but say lead generation, Jen, and you know this better than anyone with the company that you represent, like lead generation is changing all the time. And what used to be admissions leaders going out in the streets, passing out VIP cards or passing out business cards and information or going to a high school career fair or popping up here or popping up there, that used to work and it was great.
Yeah.
And then the world shifted and the world started demanding that you spend dollars for lead generation and that you have a digital lead generating strategy. And so school owners had to say, wow, okay, we've got to spend money here now. This is something that we don't have someone on our team that can execute this at the level that we need. And so we need to hire an agency. We need a partner in this lead generation if we want to keep our business going and floating, right?
Yeah.
So on the other side of it, it's the exact same. And that if you don't have someone in your school that is that knows how to write a resume. I used to teach resume class when I was like, and I've maybe written one resume in my whole life, like up to that point, but I was teaching a resume class because I worked at the school, but writing a resume, doing mock interviews, creating a digital portfolio, how to apply for national opportunities, mentorship opportunities. What does the career path look like to be a national platform artist? Not everybody knows those things. And so finding the resources to be able to teach that, financial literacy, on and on and on. Where are the gaps in your program and making it your top priority to find the tools and resources that are out there because they do exist. to help you fill those gaps. So I would say very high priority.
It is a high priority. And what owners should be doing is not just tapping into what their educators are talking about. Listen, I love a director of education. I think directors of education have their pulse on what's going on, especially style wise, or, you know, they were the ones that were like, oh my gosh, we should be adding eyelash extensions to certain programs before anyone was talking about it. They're the ones that are coming up with sort of medi spa things. I love a director of education, but do you know who meets with leads? Your admissions team. And if directors aren't saying, what are people asking for? What are people looking for? And it's funny, you know, the first question I asked you was, what do people say? What do leads say they want to do for a living? And you answered it. You know what, Stephanie, it hasn't changed. Today in 2023, 99% of kids say, I want to own my own salon. Mind you, they're more likely to do it today because of the solo salons, and, you know, they can really, you know, the chair rentals, they really can be their own boss. But if that is what 99% of leads are saying, why aren't we doing more to fill that? Why aren't we coming up with better, meatier curriculum and guest speakers that actually answers that question and helps those people achieve those dreams?
Well,
it's a no-brainer.
I don't know that that was a question, but I'm going to give you a response to it. I think that, you know, we had this mentality of we get them in the school, like that's the objective. That's not the objective. The objective is to have graduates. That's the objective, is to have a super high completion rate. And so, yeah, we want to get them in, but we don't want to lose them. And so really taking a step back and looking at how, you know, like I used to tell me all the time, like you enroll 100 people and you have this big celebration, but 20 of them graduate, like, or whatever, you know, it's like, what happened to everybody? Where did they go? And so really focused on the, you know, if you buy a really beautiful shiny car and it's fantastic and it's everything that you dreamed of and your test drive was amazing, but it breaks down 3 months after you have it, like, what was the point? Why did I go through all of that? What did I do? And so schools making sure that the program that they're providing, what they're providing their students, when you come in, what you promised is even less than what they're delivered. So we often feel that we're over promising and under delivering in a school environment, that we're telling them all the things that they want to hear to get them to come into school. And then you kind of walk around the school like this because it's not exactly what you promised that lead. That's a harsh truth, Jen. And like, that's a tough thing to talk about because nobody wants to say that. And everybody wants to say, no, like we live up to the promise. The fact of the matter is that that is not true. And so if you could take a step back and look at that and say, what could we be doing to where we're over delivering on the promise and giving that level of service to your leads? So that's the meaty stuff, right? That we would have to get into.
And you got to think, you know, I love that you said the goal is to graduate them. The goal is also, you guys know, with the new regulatory stuff going on with gainful employment, the goal is to get these kids jobs that pay well.
Right.
And they're going to get paid better if you are properly training them to build better income streams. I mean, if you could have someone come in and do a guest speaking job on how to do brand deals on TikTok, no one's doing that. Like, I don't know one school teaching that.
Right.
But like, there are kids making millions of dollars on TikTok where I'm basically regretting my entire life today. And I'm just like, how are they doing this? Go teach them. Are you kidding me? Like, what if your school was the one school in town that taught people how to do brand deals and truly taught people how to run salons? Let's look at the end goal. That would get you so many freaking referrals. Like, do you understand that the only way to get referrals today is not how we did it 10 years ago, where we were like, can you write down 5 people, you know? Like,
Jen was calling them all.
I mean, it is the most desperate thing a school could do. Do not do that. Do not say, do you have 5 friends and what is their phone number? The best way to get referrals today is authentically, genuinely from happy students.
Right.
And your students are going to be stoked out of their mind if you brought in a TikTok influencer. Like, we need to be thinking about stuff like this, because this is what's going to lead to referrals. And then guess what? You're going to be killing it with referrals where you can cut your marketing budget. I shouldn't say that because I'm beauty school's marketing group, but really you could eventually cut your marketing budget because your referrals are free.
But that's the thing, right? Like, that's where we're talking about completion. Yes, but there's a whole piece in between enrollment and completion, and that's engagement in the classroom.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I've done a lot of tours in my day, and I can tell you there's a lot of times that I've just walked right by the classroom and been like, and that's where you learn. And then let's go this way, because, you know, they're not doing anything in there, and they're sitting with their feet up and they're on their phones, or they're sleeping, or whatever that looks like. And you know that you're not going to be able to sell that program when it looks that way. And so you just bypass it. That's not authentic. That's not real. So instead of that happening, as an owner, as a school leader, taking a step back and saying, what do I need to do to fix my classrooms to where every single time when you walk by it, like, there's something popping in there. There's something going on that people want to see. And something that people want to put on their social media. What is it that we can do? Now, are there a million different ways to make theory interesting? Maybe not. But there are things that you can do to keep that classroom really lively, and something that people look forward to coming to school every single day. You know, the structure of beauty school, the schedule of beauty school is demanding, and we don't have to get into that today, but it's very demanding, and it's not conducive to what people are looking for in an educational, post-secondary educational environment. And so not only do you have them locked in for up to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, like a job, but while they're there, they're not feeling engaged or motivated. And so how do we create that engagement for them? And a lot of that comes through what you're talking about, Jen, having someone to come in and teach them how to get a brand deal on TikTok, and then giving them time to perfect their craft, to be able to put themselves out there for these opportunities. Make it about the hair, make it about nails, make it about skin, but with a different objective in mind. So it's about that reframing. Yeah.
I mean, this is beauty school. This is an accounting school. Like, we're supposed to be fun. You know, like, we're so freaking lucky. Like, we're running beauty school. But sometimes we approach it that way, like this boring, like, oh, I gotta go to school for 8 hours, which, by the way, I will say one of the biggest shifts I've seen in the past 3 years is schools cutting their Saturdays. Have you noticed that?
Fantastic.
Monday to Friday.
Great work.
Great.
Yeah, we can keep it up.
Like that. We love that. Keep that up.
But
Think
what's
outside the box.
The professional side of the industry, Jen, is now nobody wants to work Saturdays.
Which is so funny, because that's what every school said, that, right? That's why they were open Saturdays. Well, we're preparing for the real world. Well,
it's
makes no sense. They're in school. You're not supposed to be doing that.
You're going to make money when you're working a Saturday on the professional side of the industry. Exactly. Now you're taking away my, like, friend time, you know? So the mindset, I get it. I get what schools are saying. And I understand that Saturdays are busy for their, you know, their clinic and all of those things. Right. But at the end of the day, flexibility is number one above all else for every single stylist that's out there. And so what we're seeing on the professional side of the industry now is that people don't want to work Saturdays. They have to be incentivized to be able to work Saturdays. So the conversation that's happening on the professional side of the industry, like, and we're not going to step away from schools, but on that side of the industry, you know, they're saying, well, I shouldn't have to pay someone more to want to work on a Saturday. Maybe you don't think that you should, but we live in a world now where flexibility is the number one ask, the number one, not even ask, demand. And so, you know, you can't find employees, create more flexibility, right? So we spend
and cosmetologists, by the way, and makeup artists, they generally like to keep their Saturdays open half of the year just for weddings. Like, they're freelancing because they can make so much more on a Saturday. So, you know, I think you bring up a good point with the flexibility. Why is this so hard for owners? Why is it so difficult to have, like, owned a school for 30 years and step back and, like, see that the world has changed and realize we need to pivot? Why is that so hard? I know it's difficult for us because, you know, we're in our 20s and we can't relate to those people at all.
Can't relate at all. Yeah.
But it's difficult. Oh, Brenda just commented that she's one of those old school owners. Brenda, I know you though. You are extremely innovative, and that I think that's the thing, is that you have to be willing to admit the world has changed. What am I doing today that just doesn't work anymore?
Right.
And I say this, like, I do admissions and marketing trainings in schools all the time. And I say, just because you've been doing something now and it works doesn't mean it's going to work in 5 years.
Right. You're
like smile and dialing doesn't work in 2023. I don't care what you say. Like it's just people aren't going to answer the phone. You need to come up with a really, really strong texting strategy. I'm sorry. That's the world we live in. I don't love it for you. I prefer a phone. I think you can build rapport better on a phone, but it's 2023. So if you don't know how to build rapport via text, I don't even know how you're dating. Like everyone builds rapport. I mean, you text your kids, you text everyone. So I just feel like that to me is one of the biggest challenges, don't you think? Just that it's really difficult for school owners to self-reflect and look and be like, maybe our education is actually falling short.
Sure. Yeah. And I think there's a few layers there too, Jen, just for humanity in general. Like it's not just about school owners or salon owners, business owners in general. There's a few walls. And it's not just one thing, it's a lot of things. And one would be habit. Proximity. So you're in it every single day for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you've been doing it forever. It's very, very, very hard to take that, like to look at it from that eagle view, right? Like it's very hard for you to do that when you've been in it for so long, which is why having people like me or you come in and say, okay, here's what I see. Here's what, and having that very trusted set of expert eyes that come in and kind of are your partner through that process, very, very helpful. The other piece that I would say, so that's one wall that we have to get through. Mm-hmm. The next wall, and we all struggle with this. And so when I use this word, I don't want people to be like, that's not me, it's all of us, is ego. And being able to come face to face with our own ego. And to look and be like, oh, maybe, you haven't been doing things right all along. Maybe it's okay to say, wow, I've really left this team member in this role for way too long. Or, maybe you don't know that you have low engagement in your classrooms because you're never at your school. So what are the things that you can look back on yourself and be like, oh, wow, like I need to open my eyes to these things, which you have to kind of deal with that and grapple with that on your own. But then when you're in a position to really look at it clearly, you also have to worry about people saying, see, I knew that you didn't know. I know you didn't know, like team member battles and this and that. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is doing what's right for your students, period. And today's students, period. And so you do have to take a step back and say, these people have trusted me with their dollar. They've trusted me with their career. They've trusted me. So how are we honoring that relationship? And so I think if you can look at it from that vantage point, you'll probably have a lot more success in how you make big sweeping changes or even small transitionary changes in your school.
That's great. And it also doesn't mean that you have failed in the past. It just means that people have changed. When I mean, it's just that, like, you couldn't have done a TikTok class 5 years ago because it wasn't even out back then. So you haven't failed students of the past, but if you want to continue to grow and you want to be cutting edge and innovative and really meet students where they're at, we have to be willing to evolve and just look at something with that kind of, outside perspective, 30,000 foot view. What can I do better? So let's talk about some challenges. For one, it's staffing. I know for a fact, listen, you don't even have to jump into the chat to tell me this. I know schools right now are struggling with staffing. It happens to be probably the number one problem I hear time and time again is it's really difficult to keep people with today's pay. And they have to, I know I was talking to a school owner last week and what she pays her admissions reps who are, just inexperienced. I was like, what? Like, I can't even, she's like, I have to, like, I can't keep people, not just in admissions, but for sure there's a teacher shortage. So I think it would be unfair for us to sit here and just, talk about these gaps without admitting that there are some challenges that come with this, right? There's staffing, there's funding, What else do you see?
I think staffing and funding. I was going to say, like, staffing is one thing.
Yeah.
Just overall, like, because what we've been saying, throughout this conversation is there are resources that are available to help you fill the gaps. Like, you don't have a team member that's available for this. Guess what? There's probably a service that, or a product or whatever it is to help you fill in the gaps. But it's funding, it's access to that. Schools have really taken a hit, man, and they've taken a hit for a lot of different reasons. But I mean, dating back to 2020, right? Like, I mean, and it's not about COVID, it's not about the pandemic, like all of that. We've explored all of that, but people see the world differently than they saw it before. And so now we're kind of trying to figure out what our new methodology looks like, and at the same time making sure that we have enough people in those seats to provide us with the funding to be able to buy the resources, right? So it's a funky circle that people get into. But I would say in that same vein of staffing, Jen, making sure that you have the right people in the right roles. And sometimes it's not about, you have the wrong staff or not enough. It's that you're not leveraging them and their talents, their strengths. You're not teaching them about managing their time or using them in the most efficient way possible. And so, yeah, it just takes a whole new reframing these days to be able to look at how we're leveraging our staff and spending our dollar.
Yeah, I think that's great. We did a webinar last year. It's on our library page. If you guys can always send me an email and I can link some of our past webinars. But we did a webinar just on incentives to keep staff today, because it really is difficult. And maybe it's just, sending them on a trip to a convention, giving them every other Friday off, letting them work remotely a day from home, whatever it is. That's another thing that we need to, as owners, you need to be thinking about, kind of with those fresh eyes. What was an incentive 5 years ago to an employee just might not be today. We need to think outside the box. I want to get into some fun stuff. I want to talk about, this is where I kind of want to
This wasn't fun for you, Jen? I was having a blast.
I don't know. Like, it depends what kind of emails I'm going to get later, but I do want to give some really concrete takeaways to kind of how we fill that gap and how we set students up for success. I want to talk about portfolios and other ways we can do personal brand development for our students. And then any way we can even talk about Canvas Me and the school program you guys have that might be able to even fill some of this gap. Let's chat about that. So what do students need? What would help them?
I'm like, where do you want to start? I think it's really important for your audience to know too, when I left Paul Mitchell schools, it was a very hard choice for me. And I could have stayed there forever. I love nothing more than working in the schools and working with students. And as I changed as a person, and I saw the needs of both sides of the industry really changing too, I had to take a long, hard look at myself. So me talking to you about ego and habit and growth and all of those things is because I had to do it too. And I had to take a step back and look at myself in a different way and be like, whoa, like, what do I really want to be contributing to this industry that I love so much? Like, it's my whole heart, Jen. Like, I was, a single mom raising 2 kids and had, like, the beauty industry saved me. It gave me everything. We hear that over and over and over and over. And the thing about the beauty industry is that story and that feeling and why we're all here and like super dedicated to never leaving the industry is because of that. It's given us so much more than we've ever given it, right? It's a beautiful beast. So when I took a step back and I looked at how I can help to fill the gap, for me, it was about, first of all, I was going to take 3 months off and try and like figure that out for myself. And Matt Martinelli, co-founder of Canvas Me, called me and was like, hey, like right away. So I ended up jumping from one career, moved to the next, which was not my intention. But finding a home with Canvas Me was very unexpected and really an interesting move for me, because the entire time that I've been in the school industry, loving every second of lead generation, marketing, enrollment, all of that, my heart was with the graduate and the graduate being able to find the career. Like I know you do too. Like I love my career. I love my work, and it's very much a part of my life. And I wanted every single graduate to be able to feel the same way. Like when they found their home in the industry, they were like, I'm never leaving. This is like the gift that keeps on giving. And so when Matt,
how many times in admissions did you even get to see that full story though? Because you just got to see the fresh lead and student come in. And
yeah.
I mean, how much of that did you end up seeing through, right?
You know, it's funny that you asked that. And I won't go deep down this rabbit hole because it'll probably make me, I cry a lot. I'm a crier.
I'm a sympathy crier. So
Okay.
you get a tear, I'm gonna get a tear.
Here we go. Good to know. You know, but for me, Jen, I still to this day see, I live in Lexington, Kentucky, go Cats. And I see graduates from Paul Mitchell School, Lexington, that I enrolled that are still thriving. And because I'm very much an active member of my local beauty community, right? And so I see them and they'll say, I'll never forget when I was in school and you taught me this, or I'll never forget when I was in school and you said this. I'll never forget. And I'm like, me? Like, you remember you remember that? Like, that's insane to me. But now, like, watching them, and they own their own salons. They are national educators for some of the biggest brands in the industry. They like what they've gone on to do. And I mean, some of them, they work at a salon and they've had a very successful 10 years behind the chair. That's equally as impressive as anything else, right? They're still in the industry. They've had sustainable success, and that's what I love.
So this does make sense that you would naturally pivot then to a company almost, I mean, where you can continue seeing the success of people doing something they love.
And that's what, besides the fact that I 100%, and I'm not, this is, you know, I'm not saying this for any other reason. I'm saying this to you because I mean it. I believe in what Canvas Me is doing. I believe in them as human beings. Matt and Jen Martinelli. I believe in the product that's out there. I believe in their intention. And their intention is to make sure that every single beauty school student of any kind is fully exposed to all of the opportunities that lie waiting for them at any time. It's all out there for them for the taking. And it also puts the onus back on the student to constantly be evaluating self, bettering self. What are you putting out there? Are you making videos? Are you writing great bios? You're no longer just dependent upon putting stuff on a piece of paper. You're putting yourself out there just like you would on your social media, but you're able to connect with salons and brands and opportunities so that we see more of those sustainable success
Okay,
stories.
so let's chat about that then, because I know Canvas Me has the professional side and they have a program for schools. What is Canvas Me and how can schools use it? Because I don't even think we've said that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we can talk about that then. So Canvas Me, if you're not familiar, it is a recruitment platform. And so we have 3 key stakeholders that we serve endlessly. One is the school. And so that's where we start, and that's my heart. So it really works out very, very well. But we work with beauty schools to provide them with not only curriculum for their students, but they can offer each of their students the opportunity to create a free portfolio where they get to link their social media and they get to show off their achievements and their certificates, and they get to tell their story. We're humanizing the individual in the beauty space.
So it's like a mini website. Like a mini website social platform for every one of your students that sort of links everything that they've done.
You get it. You get
it.
And
then there's job opportunities on there for them.
So that's where we go next, is we connect with salons. And so, you know, we have a school that's on, they have their students that are creating portfolios. And so then we work in their local community to get their salons on board to create their own profile. So not only do you get to look at my videos and learn more about me, but I get to look at your videos and learn more about you as a salon too. Then they post their career opportunities. And then we have bigger brands from all across the country that are placing their opportunities, and not only career opportunities, but mentorships, scholarships. We're doing a huge giveaway with SOLA right now, when an all expense paid trip to SOLA sessions. We're giving one to one student and one to a professional. And so just so many opportunities that are there. So the salons, the schools, and then of course the independent stylist. And so this doesn't end when they graduate from school. They continue to build upon their profile and continue to put their own personal page out there for future opportunities. So even though you may be placed in a salon, great, but you still want to pursue an opportunity as a national educator for, let's say, Redken, right? You can do that on our platform. So think of it a little bit like LinkedIn, but definitely only for the beauty industry.
And I mean, this was a newer startup, and I feel like in a very short amount of time, it's really gained this national traction. I mean, how many users do you have on it, or how many salon partners do you guys have? Do you have any of those stats? Because I feel this isn't a small little thing. I mean, this has grown pretty big.
Yeah, it has. And, I knew Matt and Jen when they first got started, and they were coming to all of our Paul Mitchell School events. And they would come with their all their stuff when you show up at a trade show, right? You got all your stuff, and they would come in tow, and they were just like beating the pavement and spreading this message. It's a movement, it's not just about a social page or this or that. This is a movement to continue to better the future of the beauty industry, to define the future of the beauty industry, to better serve the student, the school, and the salon. So they were coming in, and I was just blown away. I love them, and I worked with them when I was with the schools. And so it's a very, very natural fit. But no, it's been about 5 years.
Okay.
A base of 35,000 members.
Wow.
Very, very, very proud of.
Love that. And that really isn't something I would say, it's definitely not part of a core curriculum with schools. I know they encourage social media, right? Like, I don't know any school that's banning a cell phone. I mean,
Right.
if you are, eek. I mean, that's not good. I mean, I really see schools embracing, like, get out your phone and put this on your social. But as far as like directing them how to do that, and photography tips, and how to build a portfolio, and that's not something that schools, I think, are great at. So this seems like a natural partnership with an app like yours.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's our job, right? That's not your job. Like,
Sure.
this is what I'm talking about all the way, is, finding those tools and resources and people that can help you fill in the gaps.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we're hosting, like earlier today, we did a national onboarding. And so if you don't have someone on your team that can onboard all of your students and teach them about Canvas Me, we'll do it for you. We'll do it one-on-one with your school and your students, or you can attend one of our national webinars like we had today, where we onboarded hundreds of students at one time with multiple schools across the country logging in. So we're providing you with those tools and resources to be able to help with engagement in the classroom, and help really support your career services department.
I think that's great. Now, if someone does want to get in touch with your team, what is the best way to go about implementing Canvas Me in a school?
Yeah, super easy. canvasme.com. You can just go fill out an inquiry there. And you can always email us directly at hello@canvasme.com. Or you can reach out to me, Stephanie@canvasme.com. But that's what we're here to do. Is just kind of lead you and guide you through that process. And it begins by doing an evaluation. And so we like to meet with each school and learn a little bit about, what does your team look like? What does your career services currently look like? What do you want it to look like? And we have myself, and we also have a director of school development. So Megan Graham, our director of school development, she meets with each school one-on-one after spending 15 years in beauty schools herself. So we have a little bit of experience to be able to help you along the way.
That's great. I just added that in the chat for you guys. So feel free to go there, check out their website. I personally have demoed it myself about a year ago. I was new to Beauty Schools Marketing Group when Matt reached out to me, and we got to look at it, and I thought it was great. I really do think schools need this. So I appreciate you sharing that. While we have a few minutes left, I want you guys to head over to the chat. We have Stephanie here. So if you guys have admissions questions, marketing questions, or even questions about Canvas Me, please let us know. There will be a recording for this webinar. If you are signed up, everyone automatically gets the webinar tomorrow. I will follow both of us on LinkedIn. I'll have a link to it as well, and it'll be in our next newsletter. So type in your questions. Just a reminder that Beauty Schools Directory is always looking to bring on new schools. Right now, we're working with over 320 campuses around the nation, connecting schools with leads, and 90% of our leads don't go to school websites. So if you're getting leads on your website, if you're getting leads through PPC, social media, that's great. Keep doing that. I would never tell you to cut that budget. You'd be crazy not to. We're extra leads. So if you need extra enrollments, we're extra leads. 90% of our leads do not go to school websites, and they're so stinking cheap that it just makes the cost per enrollment worth it. So reach out to me directly. I would love to walk you through how we get leads, and I would love to work with your school. Any questions?
Can I
Yeah,
ask you a question?
ask me a question.
Do I need to put it in the chat? Am I allowed to ask a question? Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Jen, that you've noticed how Canvas Me has evolved over the last few years. And I appreciate you calling that out. It's been in direct response to exactly what we're talking about today, the needs of the industry. The student is changing, the graduate is changing, the needs of the professional side of the industry are changing. And so as a tool that really supports the student and bridges the gap for them to walk across to the professional beauty industry, we have to really understand both sides. And we've been able to pivot really beautifully and be able to provide a product that fits the needs of today's student, right? Current student.
Yes.
And I hear you talking about Beauty Schools Directory in that way, Beauty Schools Marketing Group. Like, what are some of the changes that you've seen, and how has your organization pivoted like over the last year? Because I know that you see it too. There's such a variance, right, between what's happening in school, what's happening in the professional industry, but most importantly, on the recruitment end of enrollment and bringing in more leads. Like, just real quick off the top, like any current trends that you think are worth calling out right now?
Current trends nationwide, I will say, before I get into Beauty Schools Directory, specific things we've changed. SD's booming, like 2 SDs for every Cosmo in some markets. Everyone knows that. If you don't have an aesthetics program, think about adding one, because it is killing enrollment, I would say, everywhere. And so those leads come in authentically. And so we even have schools, Stephanie, that work with us on Beauty Schools Directory that say, I get enough SD leads. I need more Cosmo leads. So great. You can just buy Cosmo leads for us. You don't have to buy leads from every single category. So if you're needing, just your barbering and Cosmo, we have schools that just buy those leads from us. Another trend we are seeing, nails are on the rise, which this was kind of a shocker to me. I know a lot of schools are cutting their nail programs specifically because it's under 600 hours, doesn't register, doesn't get the financial aid. But nails continues to be one of the top searches on Beauty Schools Directory, actually. So if you do have a nail program, if you're needing more leads from that, definitely reach out to us for that. Makeup continues to be big. So I would beef up a Cosmo and an SD program with a good makeup program. Because as a standalone, it probably, I know it would have to be cash pay, but you want to equip someone with a license. So I would say add a heavy makeup program there. But, Beauty Schools Directory is great for several reasons. Back in the day, I feel like there was like this really bad reputation about Beauty Schools Directory. They share it with 10 different schools, that lead. It's just not true. The average share rate of our leads is 1.5. So really, leads are only seeing 1 to 2 schools on the directory. We don't share leads with more than 4 schools, Stephanie. That's how that works. And another thing we do is we teach you how to work our leads. And I don't know any other marketing company that does that. They just deliver leads to you and they're like, good luck. We have webinars. I wrote an 18-page playbook that teaches you how to work our leads differently than your own. So it's really, really important to us that we just don't deliver you a lead, that we actually teach you how to work it, because they're different. They didn't go to your website. They might not have ever heard of you. Like if you're not a Veda or a Paul Mitchell, they really might not have ever heard of you. And so, just having a better script, talk track to, reach out to these leads, I think is important. But thanks for the question. Yeah, we're constantly evolving and thinking of new ways to help schools.
Yeah, Yeah. And I think having that expert on, I mean, I could say the same for Canvas Me, that like, we're not just delivering you a recruitment platform, because the fact of the matter is that schools don't have a lot of challenges placing their students. Everyone's hiring right now. And so they're like, oh, my placement is fine. That's not what it's about. It's about engagement with your student in the classroom. It's about having something that sets you apart from your competitors when you are recruiting and you are going through that enrollment process. It's about giving them more than what they even knew that they would be paying for. And that's the pivot that we've been talking about this whole time, right? But also having the expertise to where we're not just handing you a platform, we're giving you the tools and the coaching and the hand holding, and we are that supplemental team member for you, just like you are, and that you're providing like Jen Lyle's expertise from your experience in the beauty industry on top of the platform and the product. So well done, Jen.
I appreciate that. Jen, you're a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate it. I just called you Jen because you were talking about your boss, Jen. Your name is Stephanie. I know that. Stephanie, thanks so much. I mean, you know so much about recruitment, this industry. I would love to have you on again in the future if you would be willing to chat with us, specifically more geared toward admissions. I will tell you that is the #1 request from our membership is they want more heavy, meaty admissions training. So maybe we can get into some of that this summer with you. I would love that. Thank you all so much. There's really good things here in the chat. I don't see questions. I just see a bunch of great job and thank yous. Thank you all for your attention today. Our next webinar is going to be, I think it's April 19th. It's around then. I really should have had the date. We don't have it concrete, but I'm actually going to be having financial aid experts on. There's been a lot of regulatory things changed with financial aid. It's not something that I'm smart about, so I bring in the experts. So we're going to chat about FA, how to better fund and package your students. So be looking for the sign up to that webinar for next month. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next month. Thanks, Stephanie, again. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.